Hi everybody, welcome back to our Domestic Violence Awareness Month video series. Now that October is coming to a close, we are going to do our final chat today talking about the bystander effect and how we can all be better bystanders when it comes to domestic violence and sexual assault. So just to kind of recap a little bit, since we've moved through October fairly quickly, in all of our video series, we have touched on the topics of the history of Domestic Violence Awareness Month. We've talked about the power and control wheel and broke that down a little bit. We've also discussed safety planning, love languages and communication, and then today we'll be discussing, like I mentioned, the bystander effect. So essentially what we're trying to do with all of this information that we're providing all month long is to help build a community that is with us and prepared to help us achieve our mission, which is to eliminate domestic violence and sexual assault within our community. So me being somebody who's very much passionate about prevention and that sort of public health side of things, I'm very, very passionate about making sure that the community that I'm working in is also educated, both for their own benefit as well as for the benefit of the community as a whole. So the point in doing all of these videos is just to make sure that we all have the resources that we need, we all have the education we need, and we can really just come together to make our community safer and make it a much healthier place for all of us. So with that, let's jump in. So first and foremost, if we want to be better bystanders, we need to know what a bystander is, and we need to learn about something called the bystander effect. So first and foremost, a bystander is somebody who's present or witnesses a situation and has the potential to prevent, interrupt, or discourage the situation from occurring in the first place or from escalating if it is already occurring. The bystander effect, however, is a social psychological theory that states that individuals are less likely to help a victim if others are around. And with this, the more witnesses that are present, it's less likely that anybody is going to offer help. So in the bystander effect, the witnesses or the bystanders take on the belief that somebody else is going to intervene so they don't have to, and they take that responsibility off of themselves. And again, the more witnesses that are present, the less likely that anybody is going to help themselves or call in reinforcements or get law enforcement involved or anything like that. So the studying of the bystander effect started with a woman named Kitty Genovese. So again, this arguably is what started the research on the bystander effect. So about Kitty, in 1964 in Queens, New York, 28-year-old Kitty Genovese was viciously attacked and ultimately murdered outside of her apartment complex. And the attack took place over the span of 45 minutes, in which many neighbors fled to their windows to see what all the noise was all about. But despite all of these witnesses, nobody called for help and nobody intervened. So this really does bring up my point in the bystander effect, that the more witnesses that are present, the more that they assume that somebody else is going to do something about it so they don't have to. So essentially, many people heard Kitty Genovese screaming and pleading for her life, and she ultimately died because nobody was able to help her, or nobody thought to help her. So again, even though there had so many neighbors that went to their windows and were looking outside and seeing what was going on, the situation was ultimately ignored. So the reason that understanding the bystander effect is so important is because the incident with Kitty Genovese was only the beginning, and it likely wasn't even the beginning, it was just what started the research on this topic. So understanding the bystander effect is very important, because when we engage bystanders and educate them about safe intervention strategies and educate them in the first place about what the bystander effect is, so that they can fight their mind that's telling them somebody else is going to help, then instead they'll say, you know, it's better to have more help than none at all. So realistically, when it comes to educating bystanders, because all of us have the potential and likely have been or will be bystanders to some sort of situation. Anyways, the reality is that we have a lot of potential to stop violence from occurring in the first place, as long as we as a community are educated and prepared, and ultimately ready to look out for signs that we need to intervene. In fact, there's statistics that show that 65% of violent victimizations occur in the presence of at least one bystander. That is a lot of victimization. That's obviously more than half. And again, it just goes to show why it's so important that we have bystanders who know how to intervene and know how to do so safely, so they themselves don't get into any sort of altercation or trouble. So now that we know that so much violence happens in the presence of bystanders, let's talk about some common reasons that bystanders might refuse to step in the first place. So bystanders might say that they didn't want to cause a scene, or that it isn't their business to get involved. And I mean, there's no question that becoming a responsible bystander can be difficult, because it absolutely can. Doing the right thing isn't always easy, but if we are there to do the right thing, we could prevent violence from happening in the first place. So some common phrases that you could hear when discussing the bystander strategy, or asking somebody if in a hypothetical situation if they would get involved, they might say things like, I don't want to cause a scene. It isn't my business. I don't really know what I would say or even do. I don't want to make anybody mad. Or, of course, somebody else will probably help. And again, I understand completely that it's not an easy topic or an easy thought to get involved when we see things happening or see things escalating. Just an example is of when we could really put this into practice, and I apologize, this doesn't necessarily fit in for Domestic Violence Awareness Month, but just the really common example is sexual assault. So let's say that you are out at a bar or a club or whatever your scene is, and you're dancing, having a good time, maybe drinking a little bit, and you see somebody else. There's a girl who's also drinking, same scene as you, same sort of situation, and she's just trying to have a good time with her friends, have a good time with herself. And then there's a guy that comes up and is constantly trying to coerce her into doing things that she doesn't want to do, or just isn't leaving her alone. This is a situation that we know just from our discussions on sexual assault and sexual harassment. We know that this could also escalate into dangerous situations. So if we are seeing this happen, we could step in and we could make a difference, and we could help this girl in this situation to get out and to get safe. So some ways that we can do this is to enlist our friends to go and help, and we're going to talk about this, I believe, on the next in the next little segment or so. But we can enlist our friends so that we can take the group up to her and get her involved with us and help to distract her or distract him otherwise from bothering her. We could also have it, maybe we're there with another guy friend, and we could have him go up to the guy who's harassing the girl in the first place, and we could ask him to start a distraction, like, hey, don't I know you from somewhere, and get his mind off the situation so that you or the other girl's friends could help get her away. And of course, just as a disclaimer, I completely know and understand that sexual assault, sexual harassment, as well as domestic violence and partner abuse happens to males as well. This is just a very common example to be using. Anyways, the point is just that even if intervening doesn't seem easy, it could help prevent crimes and prevent violence from happening in the first place. Okay, so I just gave an example of how we could get involved in a hypothetical situation, but I'm going to give a couple more examples, and we're going to use the acronym of CARE. So if you want to get involved, and if you are able to safely get involved, show that you care. So in doing this, CARE stands for C, creating a distraction, A, asking directly, R, referring to an authority, or E, enlisting others. So, in order to create a distraction, this would be interrupting the situation and helping the victim get to a safer place. So you could cut off the conversation with a diversion, and this could be as simple as saying, hey, I'm hungry, who wants to go grab food? Or you could start an activity if you're in a group setting to get a lot more people involved. So you could start a debate, you could have everybody start dancing, you could start a game that comes to the top of your head or something like that, just to otherwise get the focus off of the harm that's happening and help to make sure that we're bringing it back and getting everybody safe. Additionally, you could ask directly. So you could ask the person who you are suspecting to be in trouble, hey, who did you come here with? Or do you want me to stay with you? And this just opens up the opportunity for them to be vulnerable with you and let you know that they really don't think that they are in a safe position right now. And it really just opens up that door so that they know that somebody else is watching out for them as well. When it comes to R, referring to an authority, sometimes it really is the safest thing to do to bring somebody like an authoritative figure into help. So this could be anybody from police to security guards or bouncers. It could be a bartender or an employee of an establishment that you're at or something like that. So there really are a lot of options here, but this is more so not necessarily enlisting your peers to come and assist you, but this is having somebody who has some sort of position of authority be able to take control of the situation, whether that be kicking the harasser or the abuser out of the establishment, or depending on the situation, if there's police there, they could take that into their own hands and things like that. Now E, for enlisting others, this is what we had just talked about, but essentially this is just, you don't have to intervene alone. You can bring other people with you, because like we've mentioned many times now, being a bystander can be really intimidating. But if you bring friends with you to intervene, or you get a group together to go and confront the situation, it ultimately is going to allow you to be safer, and allow you to get to a situation that is more comfortable for you, for your friends, for everybody involved realistically. Okay, so how do you enlist others if you're there alone maybe, or you don't necessarily have the biggest group to go and confront the situation with? So I just wanted to provide a couple of phrases that that we can use to enlist others to help us confront these troubling situations. So you can ask the people around you, are you hearing what I'm hearing? And get that conversation started and let them know that this behavior, the words that are being said are inappropriate, and that, you know, somebody needs to do something to stop that conversation from happening. Or you could even blurt out in the group, I really don't see how X, Y, or Z is relevant or even appropriate in the context of this discussion. Because sometimes what we really need to do is call out the abuser or the harasser or whatever the context of the situation is. Sometimes we need to call them out and make them uncomfortable, and especially in group situations, you are going to have others enlisted simply by making this comment, because likely you aren't the only one who's thinking it. Again, bystander effect. You could also, if you are in the situation like we talked about at the bar or the club, you could find that person's friend, or see if maybe you'd seen them earlier that evening and you knew who they came in with. You could go up to the other people in their group and say, hey, isn't that your friend over there? I really think you need to go and step in. And then they can help their friend on that more personal level. And again, it just shows that there's more people that care and are taking consideration of the things that are happening in the environment. And then another way to enlist others is to ask, hey, will you distract them while I take my friend home? And this could be, again, in the same situation. Maybe it's your friend that is, in a situation that's very uncomfortable. You could ask somebody else in the location, hey, do you see that person over there? They're making my friend uncomfortable. They're doing this, that, or the other thing. And you can just ask them, can you help distract them? Can you start a conversation? Can you say, hey, I think I know you from one of my classes, or from work, or whatever. Realistically, it's just getting somebody else involved so that you can get the vulnerable person out of that situation. So like I just mentioned, another strategy for being a good bystander is to confront the harasser and call them out. So if it's safe for you to do so, calling them out, it makes them feel uncomfortable. And some don't even realize or want to believe that they're doing anything wrong. So by calling them out, we're able to make harassers feel uncomfortable and bring awareness to the fact that their behavior is inappropriate and that it's not going unnoticed. So just some simple phrases you can use to call out a harasser is to say something along the lines of, you need to stop, or that's so inappropriate, or even, what you just said makes me really uncomfortable. Here's why. Or you could say things like, do you even realize how problematic that is? Or simple as, why would you say that? All of these phrases, especially given with a serious tone of voice and serious facial expressions and body language, is going to let them know that their behavior is wrong and that they need to fix their actions. Because like we've said in many of these videos, regardless of whether or not they know what they're doing, taking responsibility for your own actions is crucial to creating communities and relationships that are safe and healthy. Okay, so finally, we're going to discuss what to do if somebody discloses sexual assault or domestic violence to you. So although we can all hope to be bystanders who are ready and prepared to do the right thing, sometimes the victim needs us as the bystander to be there for them after the fact. So if somebody discloses sexual assault or domestic violence to you, the best thing that you can do is to say, I believe you. And a survivor really needs support, not somebody to take their control away. So in this situation, aside from believing them, of course, that is first and foremost, you want to tell them, I believe you. But aside from that, you want to make sure that you're listening and that you're communicating with them without judgment. Additionally, make sure that you're being patient, because there's really no timetable for how to heal trauma. And additionally, you can't speed up somebody's recovery process just because you don't want to deal with it anymore. That's completely unfair. And again, we can't force somebody to do what they aren't ready for. Additionally, you're going to want to offer support. But with this, don't take the wheel. And what I mean by this is the person has already had enough control taken away from them, and they don't need you to take any more of that, even if it does pertain to their healing. Additionally, encourage self-care. This is really important, and this is just going to make sure that the survivor is taking care of themselves in simple terms and doing what they need to do to feel the most like themselves again. Again, if the survivor chooses to report or to get medical attention, offer to be there for them or be there with them. Again, you can't force yourself on them in this situation, but you can let them know that you are a safe person to talk to and that you are there to support them through the entire journey of their healing. So we've officially just completed our bystander intervention strategies presentation for Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And with that, I just wanted to kind of recap and make it clear, and it should have been especially clear with today's discussion, but all of these things that we've talked about, whether it be power and control, love languages, so on and so forth, all of these can be discussed for all of our healthy relationships, and not just in terms of domestic violence, but also sexual assault and sexual harassment. So again, I really hope that you are finding these videos useful, and I hope that you will continue to review back to them when the time comes or when you need them or you need a refresher. Because really, again, when it comes to preventing things from happening in the first place, we need all hands on deck to be able to do so. And we need to be able to work together as a community to make sure that not only ourselves are safe, but others in our community, our peers, our children, our families, our friends, everybody. So we need to keep these things in mind so that we know the warning signs of unhealthy relationships, so that we know, so that we know about how to be a good bystander, how to find resources for one another, and things like that. So with that, we are officially done with our Domestic Violence Awareness Month video series for 2020. And I just want to take a quick second to say, if you are somebody who maybe works for a school, if you have a business that you work for, whether that be a dentist office, a hair salon, a car dealership, literally anything, reach out to me. I would love to schedule a presentation and provide resources for your team, for your community, for your students. Whatever the case might be, we are completely flexible, and even though COVID might have us working remotely right now, we are here and we're ready to do whatever is safest. And that does include doing virtual presentations so that we can make sure that we're not only safe from COVID-19, but we're also safe from unhealthy relationships. So with that, thank you everybody, and if there's any questions, any comments, any concerns, let us know. Message us, comment on this video, just otherwise reach out to us, especially if you are wanting to schedule a presentation with me. All right, thank you.